A federal judge is now warning we're past the question of a constitutional crisis in a rare rebuke of the Justice Department. At issue, prosecutions brought during the president's law enforcement surge in Washington, D.C. The judge chastised prosecutors, accusing them of losing credibility and, quote, playing police for people at the administration, playing cops and robbers like children. And he sharply questioned whether the DOJ was even still adhering to a principle that is spelled out in the Justice Manual, that they should bring only winning cases. And it's not just harsh comments. That judge is now demanding the DOJ either expunge the record of someone they arrested and then dropped charges against, or explain why they won't. Joining me now, former federal prosecutor, MSNBC legal analyst Paul Butler, former federal judge and president of Dickinson College, John Jones. Back with me is MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Lisa, take us inside that courtroom. What happened there? What is in that? Because it reads not like anything I've seen.
No, it's absolutely brutal. So this was supposed to be a hearing in the case of Edward Dana. He was a defendant who was arrested essentially for punching out a streetlight on the exterior of a building in D.C. He was also intoxicated. And after he was arrested, he made some comments about fascism in the United States, and during which he made some threats, basically saying that he would take on anybody who came after him. He would F them up, so to speak, and also said that that included the president of the United States. That's the point at which the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of D.C. charged him with the federal crime of making a threat against the president. At yesterday's hearing, only 26 minutes before it began, the U.S. Attorney's Office notified Magistrate Judge Zia Faruqui that they wanted to dismiss the charges, and the rest of the hearing was focused on, why do you keep doing this? Why are we now approaching double digits of people that have been arrested during this surge of troops in D.C. against whom you cannot sustain charges, either because a grand jury doesn't vote to indict or because you see things like body-worn camera that make you second-guess your own judgment? And during it, can I read, Chris, if I can, from a little bit of the transcript? Judge Faruqui was a federal prosecutor for 12 years in D.C., has been on the bench for 5. And he says, it doesn't make any sense to me. It should not be asymmetrical that only the punitive parts of the office, meaning the U.S. Attorney's Office, are available, that the carceral sides are available. But when it comes to doing the right thing for presumed innocent people, then it's when we get to it, we'll get to it. That simply is not going to work. The offices, it's not fair to me to say they're losing credibility. We're past that point. In my life as a federal prosecutor, and I will say decorated by the prior U.S. attorneys, not myself, I have never then nor now seen in my life the volume of motions to dismiss federal criminal complaints.
Paul, the U.S. attorney in D.C., Jeanine Pirro, was just asked about this. Let me play what she just said.
I'm not going into grand juries and telling them what to do and what not to do. That is their prerogative. We are advisors to grand juries. We tell them what the law is. We present cases that are clearly based on the evidence. My job as a prosecutor is to bring criminals into court and to try to prove my case beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not into going back and forth with judges. I was a judge, okay? That's not what I did as a judge. So we need to leave politics out of it. I'll do my job. He should do his job as a judge and leave his politics out of it.
What do you make of that response, Paul?
Chris, this is high drama because judges and prosecutors rarely criticize each other. They have to work together every day. The judge is mad that Jeanine Pirro is throwing the book at people in federal court when most of these are not federal cases. They're more properly charged as low-level misdemeanors in D.C. Superior Court. When prosecutors are forcing people to languish in jail for days while they try to figure out what charges they want to bring. We had a young man who was pulled over for a traffic stop. Cops found a gun that he was licensed to carry, a little bit of weed. This guy got locked up for a week before his case was dismissed. So yesterday, the judge said that Jeanine Pirro herself should come to court to explain what the heck she's doing, what she's ordering her prosecutors to do. He said she didn't have the dignity to show up in court, even though that's what a real leader would do.
I thought, Judge, that our courts were overcrowded. I thought, in speaking over the years to any number of public defenders, that they can barely keep up with their caseload as it is. I know prosecutors who will tell you the hours that they work and they put in. And then you have the judge saying to the DOJ that you've tarnished the reputation of the district attorney's office, that there's no credibility left. How do you see this?
Well, I moved to say, first of all, that apropos of my co-panelists' comments, that the next stop for Jeanine Pirro might be to Judge Faruqi's courtroom, like it or not, and there are no TV cameras there, and they might have an interesting conversation. I find it, pretty absurd that she projects this on everybody else and not on her folks. I feel badly for the prosecutors in the sense that they're probably taking their orders from the top. And what Judge Faruqi said is they're trying to pad statistics, arrest statistics, and that leaves the U.S. attorneys in a very, very difficult position. Chris, the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution has two key components. One is the right to have your case presented to a grand jury, and the other is you can't be deprived of your liberty without due process. And both of them intersect and come into play in this case. And finally, with Jeanine Pirro, it's absolutely laughably absurd that she would say that she's not going to try to convince a grand jury what to do. U.S. attorneys do that every day. The old adage, which and my panelists know, that you can indict a ham sandwich if you want to. Maybe it's because these cases that are being presented to the grand jury are so laughably thin that, even a grand jury with no rebuttal can't find a way to indict people. It's, I feel sorry for the professionals in the U.S. Attorney's Office, but they need to listen to what the judge is saying, because this is a clown show.
Well, there's also a question about what this might mean for prosecutors' offices, I think, in many parts of the country. And I say that because you do have a situation where, as you mentioned, folks might consider whether or not it's worth it anymore. If you're a good lawyer, you don't become a prosecutor to get rich. You become a prosecutor because presumably you believe in the law. And if it becomes a case where you're spending a lot of time because you're being told to work on things that cases you cannot win, what could that mean?
Well, as Paul and Lisa know, it is the duty of the United States Attorney's Office to bring righteous prosecutions. And as was noted, prosecutions that you have a reason to believe that you can present evidence in favor of and you can win. And if you discourage professional line, as we call them, prosecutors, from doing their job, and if you bring, quite frankly, crap cases in and force them into courtrooms where they're going to get embarrassed by judges who are asking, frankly, what's going on with these cases. Who'd want to do that? Nobody wants to get pilloried by federal judges every day. So you're right. I mean, it goes right to the center of the morale of these offices, and it tears at the fabric of the way the system is supposed to work.
I mean, I have talked more than a few times, Lisa, about prosecutors being asked by a judge to answer a reasonable question, and they have no answer because they have no answer.
Right.
But this case specifically, what's next?
Well, first of all, Judge Faruqi has asked the government to submit a brief by Monday where they lay out what the justification was for the charges, what they are going to do next. Are they going to expunge the arrest and dismiss this case with prejudice, or are they not going to? And if not, why not? They mentioned at the beginning of the hearing they have filed misdemeanor charges in D.C. Superior Court. Given the unique structure of D.C., the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. also will handle that case. But I want to make one other point, which is that Judge Faruqi actually singled out the prosecutors here to say that she didn't think that they were responsible. She said, I don't think it's any part of your job requirement, meaning being available 24 hours a day to prosecute these meritless cases, how you are all being expected by your management to keep up. Somehow you miraculously are doing the best that you can so you can sit down. This is not directed at you, but I have questions and I need answers.